Well, hello there, 738 at 1360, thesource.com. I'm Scott Fitzgerald. This is Yoga, the other 98%. It's a presentation of Virtues First and the Cincinnati Yoga School. And way to go, Miami Redhawks, winning it out there. Steve Baker, good call on that. Greg Waddell, good call. Guy sounded a little excited, a little uptight at the end of it all. Think you need a little yoga in your life. Yogani's with me tonight. Well, you were listening to the end of the game there, Yogani. What do you think? Could use a little bit of stress, a little stress reduction?
Well, it was a pretty exciting game. I enjoyed it, even though I'm not from Ohio.
Where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college?
I went to school in Georgia.
In Georgia. That's a whole different animal than here.
Yes, yeah, it is. Very relaxed, laid back. Great place for yoga.
No kidding. Well, this is getting to be a better place for yoga here in Cincinnati, and one of the main reasons is Wilbur Scheer and the Cincinnati Yoga School. If you call into the yoga school after hearing this radio program and you want to find out more, your first class is absolutely free, and you can go to CincinnatiYogaSchool.com or CincyYogaSchool.com and find out all the information you want about things happening locally. As far as worldwide, Yogani, you're really pushing us here, and it's good to have you on. Your website, AdvancedYogaPractices.com, and I know people all across the country are listening, and we encourage you to call in tonight. Tonight we're talking about the breath, and you got a fancy schmancy word for it, Yogani.
Pranayama.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Our number, 877-345-3779. 877-345-3779. Last week we talked about deep meditation, and that always seems to be one of the first steps for somebody on a spiritual journey. The breath comes in, if not before, then soon after. So, Yogani, why?
Well, the way we handle it in AYP, Advanced Yoga Practices, is we begin with deep meditation, and that is what we talked about last week. By the way, we have these radio interviews recorded and available on the website that Scott had mentioned. So if you missed the one last week on meditation, it might be good to listen to it before, if you're listening to this one now, go back and listen to the other one too. We start with deep meditation, and then once we're stabilized in that, which can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, then we add on a practice called Spinal Breathing Pranayama. And pranayama means literally restraint of breath. And there are more refined definitions than that. Basically, it divides into two parts. The word prana means life force or energy
right,
within the body in this case, although it's found everywhere in the environment. And the word yama means restraint. So pranayama means restraint of breath or restraint of life force. The breath is obviously very closely associated with the processing of our life force in the body, the processing of oxygen, and throughout the circulatory system, and so on. What we do in pranayama is two things. We try and keep it very simple. Spinal breathing pranayama has two steps. The first step is we slow our breathing down consciously, not excessively, not to the point of discomfort, just slowing down our breathing to a comfortable, slower rate. And the second thing we do is that while we're doing that, we trace with our attention what we call the spinal nerve. That's where the name spinal breathing comes from. And the way we do that is when we are inhaling slowly, we start at the perineum, which is the point right underneath the pelvis, between the sex organ and the anus.
In the bowling alley, they call it the taint.
The tank. We
right.
start down
taint.
there.
Yeah.
We start down there. And we inhale up slowly up the center of the spinal column, slowly up to the center of the head, and then go forward to the point between our eyebrows. And we should, once we get a little practice, we'll be full up with air by the time we get to that point between the eyebrows.
If somebody's familiar with deep breathing, would that be belly breathing, then chest breathing, then all the way up into your collarbone breathing as you go up?
Well, we are the way we breathe in terms of how we handle it physically in our body is an aspect of pranayama, and I don't know if we'll have time to get into that, but for those who know what a full yogic breath is, which is beginning in the belly and coming up through the chest and up to the top of the collarbones, That's the way you breathe with a full yogic breath. But don't worry about it too much when you're just starting off. These are features that can be added later on. For now, we just want to get a hold of the slow breathing and then coming up the spine to the point between the eyebrows on inhalation, and then on exhalation, you go follow the root back down from the point between the eyebrows to the center of the head and down the spine all the way back to the perineum. So by the time you're empty, you're back at what did you call that? The tank, Scott?
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Called that the tank, Scott?
The taint.
Oh, okay.
It taint the front part and taint the back part.
Oh, it taint the front and it taint the back.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the perineum is where you want to end up when you're empty. This is a very simple practice.
Sounds simple.
It can be made very complicated, and there are teachings that do make it very complicated, but it doesn't have to be because it's very effective with just these two elements of slow breathing and tracing the spinal nerve up and down.
Okay, you call it prominent. You call it spinal breathing. It comes under the heading of pranayama. What might somebody have heard this referred to in other practices? Are there other names for it that you've heard of?
For this type of breathing?
Yeah, or is this something that you've just put together and created this as a tool based on what you've distilled?
Well, it's an ancient practice that goes back thousands of years, and it actually has been recorded in some scriptures that are as old as 4,000 years.
Okay.
And it didn't. There's no specific name given for it then, but back in the 1800s, a movement began, at least that is visible to us today in terms of the literature and the teachers, called Kriya Yoga. And this style of spinal breathing is a mainstay in Kriya Yoga. However, the different branches of Kriya Yoga modify it in different ways and add things, and so there are many different versions of this style of breathing. But I think the best way to look at it is as a very ancient technique that is very simple in its essence, but as it has come up to us over time, over the thousands and hundreds of years, it's gone in many different directions with the various traditions that have used it. Kriya Yoga is not the only tradition that uses it. In fact, you can find some vague references to it in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the sort of the Hindu Bible.
Got it.
So this technique has been around a long time. It has a lot of different names.